Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm talking about what is one of the decks I'm most excited for post rotation, and is also a deck that you can play now, which is Feraligatr. Obviously, most decks post rotation are also, the meta is not that different, though there are some differences, and I will be making a video in the future covering the new meta game, though, long story short, Dragon Bolt's really good, Raging Bolt Ogre Pond is really good. Those are the two top decks in Japan. Um, there is no bench protection, so you're losing mana fee. That's kind of bad for this deck, but whatever. Every deck's losing it, and yeah, that's the main thing. The main takeaways. There are trainers Pokemon. They're certainly fine. They are meta, but they're not dominating it. And if you actually want to see the meta game, you can find it under decks and or no under tournaments and then city leagues, and you can flip through. And Froggator is legitimately solid. If we look at the metagame, we see a bunch of popular decks. You see Goldengo, you see obviously Raging Bull, some different things. You see Charizard, though there's not that much here, and you see some weird stuff. And there is a bit of Feraligatr. It's definitely a legitimate deck. So it's not just a meme deck. If you are wondering that, it is a solid deck. And I believe, as I said, I am still gathering data, but I believe it is a top 10 deck in Japan right now, um, based on plays and wins and stuff. So it is certainly solid, and I wanted to break it down because there's a lot of stuff to talk about it. I've been messing around with it some in live and by myself and doing some different things with it. And it's a deck that I do probably plan on playing post rotation, and I have been playing now and have some lists and some thoughts on things that I think would make it better. Because there is not a complete consensus, but a pretty, normal way it's being played in Japan, and I think there are some actual issues with the list that can be made better. But the first thing, obviously, that's the most important is what Feraligatr does, because you might know this card, a bunch of you probably do, but some of you probably definitely don't as well, because this card certainly has not been meta before. Looking at it in Limitless Database, one person played it in one regional and did okay, I suppose, but not anything super amazing there. But it's a Pokemon here with its ability Torrential Heart, which says once during your turn, you may put 5 damage cards on this Pokemon. Putting 5 damage cards on this Pokemon, in my opinion, is not that meaningful. It does put you within the range of Dusknoir, which isn't ideal, but I mean, it's still just a one prize trade. It's like a one for one trade. And then if you do, attacks used by this Pokemon do 120 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. That is a lot of extra damage, right? And then you have your attack here, Giant Wave, which says for 2 water energies, you do 160 during your next turn. This Pokemon cannot use Giant Wave. It, normally this would be the same as not being able to attack, but it is not in this case, which is very meaningful. This is from Temporal Forces, and there are, of course, previous evolutions, and you will be using the Pokemon Relicanth, which is I don't remember what set that was from. I was going to say it's the same set, but it's not. But anyways, Relicanth is actually really important. Um, and it is from Temple Forces. I thought it is, and I didn't see it. Anyway, so your ability here on Relicanth is really cool. It's actually probably my favorite ability in Standard, though it's not super strong. But it says each of your evolved Pokemon can use any attack from its previous evolutions. You of course still need the energy. It essentially allows you to have that attack. It's technically different, but it doesn't really matter. This allows you to copy the previous evolution, the Totodile and the Crocodile, though, for Feraligatr, and if you don't see where this is going, it will allow you to do extra damage on those attacks as well. They're both 1 water energy. They are pretty simple attacks. Giant Wave is also pretty simple, but Crocodile here does for 1 water, 30, and you switch this as with one of your benched Pokemon, well, on the stage 1. Then on the basic, Totodile for 1 water again, you do 10 during your opponent's next turn. The defending Pokemon cannot retreat. And Totodile's attacks are really interesting. Crocodile's is also pretty interesting. But looking at the actual math, you're doing 120 more. So for Alligator itself, will be doing 280. 280 is a pretty good number to hit. It's not obviously one-shotting everything, but this is one-shotting a lot of things. Pidgeot EX, obviously, the V stars that are amazing. You're not one-shotting post rotation. If you want to play this now, you can play it. And I'll actually mention real quickly, I mentioned Manaphy, which you probably want to include, but you should also definitely toss in Irida pre-rotation. that's the major card to add. It's an amazing card in water decks, and so you should play that. But regardless, the rest of this is all talking post rotation, though again, it's not like super different. But Feraligatr is a card that, with your ability, you're hitting very solid damage for one energy with these previous evolutions. It's actually pretty similar damage amounts, so you could be doing 150 or 130. These aren't really one-shotting numbers on two prizers, though against Serial GX, I played this on the ladder and I ran into that, and that was super easy. I used Crocodile's attack to one-shot them with weakness, which is nice. And then you have the extra effects, but you are like, two-shotting a lot of things with the one energy attack, which is fine, creating an even prize trade in a lot of situations. I guess the Pokemon I'm talking about are going to be stuff like, say, Raging Bolt EX, not something like Charizard EX. Charizard EX is, has a lot more HP than Raging Bolt EX. Again, another Pokemon you'd be two-shotting. I mean, most Pokemon that aren't stage 2Xs, you'll definitely be two-shotting with, at least, say, Crocodile's attack with the damage buffs. Keep in mind, if you are piling damage on, because Crocodile does send itself to the bench, and we'll talk about what you can do with this in a moment, but that means that there's a solid chance Feraligatr will be safe. So then at that point, you'll start potentially piling on a lot of damage to Feraligatr, which you need to be a little bit careful of. As I said, I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's obviously not something you really want. Like, you'd rather not put the damage on. You could use Monkey Door with it, which we'll get to, but I don't think that's super strong. But you can acquire too much damage at some point, so you do need to keep that in mind. But then Croconaw does hit swing to the bench. Totodile, though, stops him from retreating, and you don't have to use the ability, obviously. And Totodile is a Pokemon that actually is like really interesting because it stops him from retreating. Like Pokemon like Mawile, Snorlax, Wellspring, Ogerponi, Exochar. Mawile's not played that much. I think it's a really good card, but Snorlax has played a decent amount, as I'm sure many of you are aware of pre-rotation, as well as Wellspring Master Ogerponi X. Wellspring Master Ogerponi X is a card that does 20 damage and then stops him from retreating. And then it's played within Lugia, but that's a little bit different. It's played within Pidgeot Control, which is what I want to focus on. And you pair it with double turbo energy. This reduces your damage by 20, meaning that you don't do any damage, which you don't want to do any damage because you want to stop your opponent from retreating and get them stuck in the active forever. On the other hand, Totodile is going to be doing 10 damage. 10 is obviously not that much. If you're trapping a Pidgeot EX in the active, although that will be able to attack, but let's just say it can't, it'll be a lot of turns. So they'll probably just deck out. They might not, but presumably they will. And even something like Pheasantipity EX, again, that can attack, or Squawkabilly EX. These Pokemon can all attack. I can't really think of an example off the top of my head that you can trap super easily. Oh, Latias EX. I played a game. My opponent played on Latias EX, and I got it stuck in the active. Its ability lets you get out normally, but it can't retreat. So then you'll be trapping them for a while, but eventually they will get knocked out. So you need to kind of consider that. Obviously, then you will be knocking them out and advancing two prizes, which can be good. So it can be used to lock in knockouts. And then in that situation, if you really wanted to take the knockout quickly, you could use the extra damage. But in terms of trapping, this is solid. And the 10 damage I don't think is like that big of a deal. Obviously, for true trapping situations where you're trying to emulate these trapping options used in control decks, then the 10 damage is bad. But I think Totodile is legitimately a really important part of the deck. And as we've seen, Snorlax is a really amazing control card, probably one of the best control cards I've seen since I've been playing the game, if not the best. I think it is the best, as it's been truly a solid meta deck. But regardless, Totodile is, I think, really it's not as big of a part as Feraligatr itself, but I think it is a bigger part than Crocodile, which we'll talk about. Let's take a look at the first list here. Oh yeah, this one plays. You can't actually. I imported this list into live, and then I couldn't play it because Pokemon Center Lady is not legal in standard. We'll be getting reprinted, so that's cool. But anyways, I don't think it's that important. It heals, so that's like cool if you end up getting too much damage on you. But I don't even think it's that good in the list. But regardless, this is a pretty similar list to what I was playing. Actually, the one that I was playing was this one. Very similar to this. These are two different lists with obviously some different cards. We see the Feraligatr line, and we see no rare candies, and we also see very minimal evolution search, which I do have some issues with, but you do have the full evolution line, so you can be using Croconaw. We see obviously Relicanth, we see Monkey Dory, so if you can get Darkness Energy on that, you can then be moving the damage off of your Feraligatrs onto your opponent's Pokemon and be doing even more damage, which is obviously always going to be nice. Um, though it's probably not something that is swinging things too much, like, 30 extra damage, 60, 90 throughout the course of the game can maybe get you an equivalent of, like, an extra prize, which is nice. Feraligatr is a single prize attacker, so assuming you're not playing against Iron Hands EX, which Iron Hands EX certainly is not ideal, then you're trading evenly, but you're stage 2 with a bunch of energy, so you got some issues. But assuming that's not the situation, you have a substantial wiggle room, which is important to the deck. And also you have these disruptive options. You have Mimikyu and you have Totodile, which are disruptive options. And Croconaw can hit and run, or Croconaw's attack can be used to hit and run into Mimikyu. And then you can be doing substantial hit and run damage. Hit and run decks, I can't really think of any off the top of my head that are like somewhat recent. I can think of like Excelgor and Hitmonlee, and those aren't very good. So, or they're okay. Excelgor is pretty good. Hitmonlee was fine, but also they're quite old. So, hit and run is definitely a sketchy strategy because it generally has really low damage. Those are hitting like 30, 50 damage, I think was Excelgor. You can boost it, but this is doing 150, maybe more with the Monkey Dory setup. And then you also have Beach Court within this list. So then that is you send a Mimikyu, your opponent can't damage you, and then retreat back into the Croconaw. You could put Rescue Board. I personally think Rescue Board is a really good addition to the deck. Though Luxurious Cape Luxurious Cape's a really interesting card that we've talked about some on the channel, and it's really unique. And it's if you don't know what it says, what it says is if the Pokemon this card is attached to doesn't have a rule box, then you can use this, and it gets 100 extra HP, which is really nice. But then if it's knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, they take an extra prize card. In some ways, this kind of turns your single prize Pokemon into EXs with higher HP and with giving up more prizes. Generally, this is just looking at it kind of universally. It's bad because EXs are better than single prize Pokemon. They have this downside, so you're taking the downside. Then you get part of the upside of more HP, but you don't have the stronger attack or ability of two prize Pokemon, so you don't want to just slap this on random Pokemon. However, on Mimikyu, it's really amazing. Mimikyu is a Pokemon that's pretty difficult to deal with. However, your opponent might be able to deal with it through the use of Fan Rotom was one that came up a lot, as well as Dracloak when I was messing around with this. And when I've been playing Mimikyu, it's just like these cards are one-shotting you, but they're not one-shotting you with Luxurious Cape. They're three-shotting you. And if they get rid of the tool, then yes, they've knocked you out, but they've only taken one prize. Additionally, if you are knocked out by it only triggers the extra prize when your opponent knocks you out by damage from their attack. So if they knock you out through an effect of their attack, such as, say, Dragapult EX placing damage cards on your bench Pokemon, or I always say Roaring Moon EX. It's not even. It's barely played post rotation in Japan, but regardless, something like that, something like an ability as well, like your opponent's Monkey Dory, then they will not get the extra prize, which do keep that in mind. I think my opponent, like Radiant Alakazam, knocked it out, obviously pre-rotation, and then they quit because they only got one prize or something like that. I think they actually AFK'd. But anyways, um, Mimikyu is really disruptive, especially with Luxurious Cape. I don't think Luxurious Cape is very good on Feraligatr. I have heard some talk about this deck, and I've heard people kind of say that, and different takes on Luxurious Cape. But Feraligatr is not that tanky. I mean, 180 is obviously good, and then 280 is quite good. I said 280 is a pretty common number, and the Pokemon like Pidgeot EX, it's a moderately tanky Pokemon. Obviously, for stage 2 EX, not amazing, but once you use your ability, it is lower. In that case, I think it will matter. And getting Monkey Dory powered up is hard as well. Assuming you're using Giant Wave, which is a substantial part of your game plan, then that's two energy attachments. You have essentially no energy acceleration. You have Crispin, which is a one of, which you can't really search. You can kind of get with Pokegear. But you're not going to be crispening consistently at all. It's just a once per game thing to get you one turn ahead on energy. But you'll be struggling you're not really going to be able to giant wave every turn. And also the other list that I have here, which is kind of like the other variant, does not have any energy acceleration either. So in order to get the energies on Feraligatr, you need extra turns. And if your Mimikyu's buying you a bunch of extra turns, then that's good. That'll allow you to get your Monkey Dory and your Feraligatrs and Croconaws powered up. However, at that point, if your Mimikyu's buying you a bunch of turns, I don't think it really matters what's happening. Like if your Mimikyu is buying you 3 turns, you should probably win. If they're just not able to deal with it, and at that point, just like attack with Mimikyu Luxurious Cape. Mimikyu Luxurious Cape, as I said, was really good, and it's good on its own. You can just play this. I've always, whenever I talk about Mimikyu, I say you should always be able to attack with it. I think that's how you get the most value by far. Um, you don't need to rely on attacking with it, but both these lists can attack with it, which are, as I said, the main ways. So pretty much every list looks kind of like this. And so then you could just kind of send that into the active and just start swinging with Mimikyu and maybe even have Monkey Dory in case your opponent chips away at you, and then kind of win that way. And there's no need for the stage two that's manually, or not necessarily manually evolved, but is evolved through its stage one, not through the use of Rare Candy. And so at that point, I think that the energy situation is very sketchy with the deck, and this is what happened when I played it. When things are going well, it's going amazingly, but you don't need what I called win more cards, which are cards when you're ready winning. You don't need to push forwards. You need to just stay in the, like, if you're up on prizes, just trade evenly and you'll win. But in this scenario, you can really push ahead and stop your opponent from taking any prizes and like apply all this pressure, but you don't really need to do that. So long story short, I don't really love I think there are some issues with that aspect, and then obviously, as I've kind of hinted at, there are consistency issues. The list, looking at a normal deck like let's see, this Miraidon deck, for example, it plays some supporters. It plays low supporter counts, but it has some draw Pokemon. You have Fezandip EX, Squawkabilly EX, Mew EX, Lumineon V, Rotom V, Raikou V. These all provide some amount of draw. Raikou V is obviously much less. Something like Fezandip EX and Squawkabilly EX, these are pretty explosive draw Pokemon. So some different things going on there, but a bunch of draw support Pokemon. And then you also have Hisuian Heavy Bell's not really search, but and I'll discount Secret Box. I'll even discount Forest Steel Stone, but we see 4 Nest Balls and 3 Ultra Balls. Taking a look at another deck, like this deck's kind of give me like a stage deck. There we go. You can look at, say, this Dragapult deck. Dracloak helps you draw cards as well as Pheasant DX, Lumineon V, and Rotom V. And then you have some supporters. Then you have Buddy Buddy Pop and Ultra Ball and Nest Ball to get your Pokemon as well. Looking at these Feraligatr lists, they don't have anything like that. They have no draw Pokemon. They have a bunch of supporters, and for Pokegear, I personally don't like Pokegear, but I think it's good in this deck. The supporters are like good, but they're not supporters that are necessarily going to get everything set up all the time that you need. So, like Lana's Aid is a supporter that's both a recovery card. It's almost kind of search-like as well, but you can only play one supporter per turn, and you have all these things to set up, right? So I think I played the deck and it's okay. I actually made my own list. This one, oh, this is a different one. So I wanted to try something out. I believe this is also pre-rotation. And there are a bunch of things going on in this list. This is really focused on, obviously it's not focused on Mimikyu and Monkey Dory, as they're not in the list. And this is focused solely on Feraligatr. And we also see the Dunsparce as a draw engine. I just wanted to stick it in. I definitely have put in like Bibarel Squovit or Curlia Gallade. I actually think Curlia Gallade would be quite nice in the deck, but I want to make it post rotation. So we got to Dunsparce. It's fine. And this deck set up substantially better than the other builds that are being played in Japan. And you're able to use Giant Wave and also have the pressure of Big Bite, and have Reverse Thrust as an option to do damage for 1 energy and protect your Feraligatr a bit more. Though it's certainly not the same level as the Mimikyu combos, so you're losing out on a substantial portion of the deck, but you're also way more consistent. And this deck felt really solid. This is not the current build I have, but this is one that if you actually want to try, you can try it out. I don't know if the description is, or if the deck list is in the description or in the comments, but if it's not, just ask me and I'll give it to you. But or you could just copy it from here. That's kind of annoying, but the deck is very, very like more normal, right? You got a draw engine, a bit of a weird one, but you got a draw engine. You also have Pokemon Search. You got Rare Candy as well. Fezzik EX also I want to mention, obviously, really good card, arguably the best card in the game. It's not played in these lists, I believe, just to keep it single prize, but I think it legitimately could be like a really solid, like easy inclusion, right? I mean, it's so good. You can't really search it out. Like this list can't search it out at all. Oh, never mind. Neither of them can, but it's still really good. I mean, you just throw it down, you get to draw 3 cards, and that's good. Um, you don't always draw 3 cards, but you know what I mean. You can use its ability, and it's good. So I would not hate to see that in the list. I would also like the Pokemon search is very thin, obviously. Um, the way that you get to your Feraligatr, especially in this list, felt really sketchy. Grand Tree is a stadium card that'll just get your Feraligatr. Assuming you have a Toad Island, spend a turn, it gets it. Assuming you don't have like super bad luck. So Grand Tree is kind of it's good enough. Though it can be prized, and you need Colossus Tenacity to kind of find it as well, which it's a little sketchy, but it's okay. And then you have like pretty minimal basic search. You have Buddy Buddy Poffin and Artizone, which are okay. Um, and you'll draw into some Pokemon as well, but it's definitely very sketchy. And then this other list, I messed around with a bunch, and your Precious Trolley and Buddy Buddy Poffin get your basics and Artizone as well, so you could kind of get those. Certainly Precious Trolley is solid. And you have Team Evolution, and you're kind of reliant on Arvin turn 1 to get going. But at that point, you don't actually have the Feraligatr, you have the Crocodiles in play. So you need to draw into the Feraligatr, which is kind of sketchy, and you don't necessarily have the energy where you need it, and it's a big mess in my opinion. So at that point, you're reliant on the Totodile or Mimikyu to stall out your opponent, or yeah, do something like that. And at that point, you're in a very good position anyways if you're going to have these extra turns to set up. So I definitely think this is the list I have been. Wait, is this the list? Yeah, this is the list that I've been using. There are some changes, and some changes I still want to make. I think this is the list that I've been using. It certainly has some of the stuff here. Reversal Energy is nice, which I'll get to, but Team Evolution is solid. With Grand Prix. I think they're both worth playing. And then I also added Reversal Energy, which I think is really good as an inclusion with Colossus Tenacity. I think that's a no-brainer. Colossus Tenacity gets out if you don't know a Stadium and an Energy, which can be of any type. So it's predominantly used with Special Energy first. Like it's really the only way to search it out. It might not be the only way. It's one of the only ways. You have, I guess, Pidgeot EX, and I'm sure there are some other things like that, but Colossus Tenacity is really solid for that. But here it's used to find your Grand Tree. But I think having a really valuable Special Energy and Reversal Energy is quite nice, as this card allows you to attack with Giant Wave in situations where you wouldn't be able to normally. Also, EXP Share I think is worth using in this list that's really focused on using Giant Wave and just doing big damage with that. You have EXP Share, which I found really solid because you have Arvin, and your tool counts are kind of low as well. Also, I cut the Luxio's Cape and Monkey Dory stuff down. You're not going to be able to Monkey Dory all that often, even with something like EXP Share and Reversal Energy to allow you to have a better energy situation. So I could see a Crispin in, but you can't really search it out. Other changes I'd make, the 4 cards I have right in front of me, like on my phone, EXP Share, Rescue Board, Rare Candy, and Ultra Ball I think would be solid inclusions. And in that situation, I'd probably cut Alana's Aid. I'd probably get 2 Lana's Aid. I'd cut I'm not exactly sure. I haven't figured this out. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I'd cut some stuff, maybe a supporter or something, maybe counter catcher. I mean, counter catch is good, but there are cards you could cut certainly, and I think the deck is really nice though with its control options. But I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts now that I've really dove in deep into the deck. This is the first like real deck breakdown I've done in quite a while, because I don't usually do this, but now that I've messed with the deck, I feel like I could offer solid insight. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy this deck messing with it as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff.